Joshua 2415 Outdoors, proudly in partnership with Christian Bow Hunters of America. Woo! We are back. It's been 2 weeks since we recorded. You don't know this because episodes have been coming out regardless, but we've pre-recorded because, as we mentioned, there was a baby on the way, and the baby is now here, and now we can record somewhat normally.
Amen.
At least today.
At least today, that's right.
So we will just jump right into this. All right. Oh, I was going to cook up some gator the other day, but I couldn't because all I had was a crock pot.
That's funny, I tell you.
Come on.
Yeah.
All right, fine. And you're not going to humor me with the dad jokes today.
I want to know what I think of your dad jokes.
That shout out to the one they call Cowboy on that one. Anyways, all right. So this podcast is going to be a beginner's part 2. We're going to dive back into kind of beginner questions of what examples, advice, what have you, that you would give to someone who's just getting into hunting and or archery.
Yeah.
So, and this is just questions that I myself have also because, as mentioned before, I am new to archery and not particularly new to hunting in general, but definitely not very seasoned in the sport of it. So, here we go.
Let's get after it.
Let's get after it. And these are the first 4 questions at least are scenario based. We're gonna throw in and just have a little fun with it, paint a little picture for you.
I love your scenario based question.
My sarcasm meter is going off the charts right now. So let's say now, as we mentioned in the last podcast, you're out in your tree stand, just soaking in the glorious presence of God. You're out there in the woods, and you're seeking a certain deer that you consider a trophy. So, how would you, and you want a mature deer, right? Because you're an experienced hunter, you've shot so many deer throughout your life, and now you just want to pick ones that are kind of more on the mature side, right? Is that correct in saying?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I just, I more so than the maturity level, I want a great big set of antlers,
Okay, well, that's fair enough.
So
how
a lot of people you see on the shows now, they say, well, they don't care about the size of the antlers. They just want that deer to be 5 or 6 years old so that he's reached his full potential. Well, Roger Raglan, I've been watching him and his hunting shows since he was, since I was a very young man and since he had just started. And I can remember him saying, if a buck comes by, that's the size antlers that he wants, and somebody says, well, what's he gonna turn into next year? We're not gonna turn into nothing next year because I'm gonna kill him if he's what I want.
He's in the dirt right down in there.
But
he ain't going very far.
Yeah, I make my judgment on mainly by the seat of my pants. I have a decision of what I would like to take, and if I have trail camera pictures of certain deer, and I know that there's certain deer that I would like to take and certain deer that I would just as soon, let go for this year or maybe let go for a few more years. But, I do enjoy hunting that older class of deer now because they are just such a different animal. And if you're talking about hunting an older class of deer, you can judge that by the how filled out their body is. You can judge that by the shape of their face and how that Roman nose, how full their face is. It's a totally different animal.
Let me stop you right there and finish the question, because you're answering it, and that's not fair.
Well, I thought you already asked it.
So, yeah, exactly. It's what you said, but how do you judge the age of that deer? And what are the indicators that tell you, yes, this is a mature deer? And like you said, you've already led into some of that. Is there any
I'll
other?
answer it now.
Who?
No, there's just so many different things, as a buck gets into his more mature years of 4, 5, 6 years old and even older. He's just like the rest of us. He starts to get that pot belly. He starts to really fill out. You'll see, his back will start to sag back in front of his hips. He'll really fill out in his face and his head. You know, all of them's neck swells up in the rut, but it's just a totally different animal when you get into that 4, 5, 6 year old stature.
It's on a different level.
It's on a different level. It's just a totally different type of animal when he comes to the woods, how he dominates the woods, it's just almost like he commands control of the woods when a buck of that age comes to the woods.
That makes sense. And I like the way you put that too. That really does help to kind of clear that up when you said, it's kind of like when we age, we start to look a certain way, and that's typically, I never thought of it that way. That makes sense to look for that in that animal as well.
And you can see that in any kind of animal. You look at and I know you have dogs at home. I have dogs at home. We have old English bulldogs, and we have the female. She's several years older than our male, and she has trouble walking. You can see she's starting to dip down right in her low back, or she's starting to age, and she's getting thicker in the front end, and she's really, you can see that she is a more mature and older dog than my male, which is, he's only 2.5, 3 years old, something like that. And he's in the prime of his life, but you can already see the difference in just a few years of what the age has done to the older dog. And you can see that in any kind of wildlife.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. And to expand a little more on that, never mind. I forgot where I was going with that. Daggone it. All right, we'll move on. I'll just go to the next question.
We're rusty, aren't we?
Oh my gosh, yeah, 2 weeks is really, gosh, but I've missed it. That's the thing. I've missed it, and I couldn't wait to well, within reason, I couldn't wait to get back and do this again. But yeah, we got to get back on it. All right, so this is kind of a two-parter in this scenario-based question. I know you're on edge.
I'm ready.
All right. Would you agree that one of the best places to hunt would be a transition zone? And what I mean by transition zone is from bedding grounds to feeding grounds, water sources, etc., things of that nature. And if so, let's say you found a new area to hunt. How would you go about finding that transition zone?
Okay. Yes, for sure, it's one of the best places to hunt.
Provided you haven't already made a mock scrape, of course, because I would say that's probably more ideal.
Well, if I'm going to make a mock scrape, I'm going to make
find a transition
in that transition zone to make that mock scrape, and I'm going to find my transition zones now through Google Earth. I'm always going to go back now, having access to that. Now that is what I'm always going to go back to when I'm looking at a piece of property. I'm always going to go back to Google Earth, and I'm going to see those the different terrains and the different structures that you've got there. I know you love to bass fish, and bass fishing on structure is one of the best things that you can do.
100%.
The structure deer will use that structure the same way. Inside corners, right on the edge of heavy brush to where they can see good but have access to get back into the thicket. It's all, I guess, all wildlife, whether it's fish or game or whatever it is going to use structure. We use structure to our own advantage. So when you're looking at these transition zones, whether it is from bedding to feeding, everything is a transition zone in a whitetail's life. He's either going to bed or he's coming back from bed, or it's always going to be something. But I really, especially in the early part of the year, I like to key in on the transition zones for food. And then as you go toward the rut, transition zones more toward the bedding areas. And then after rut's over with, and you start to go back, they're having to key back in on the food. So I would naturally go back to the transition zones to the food and hunt closer to the food. But I'm always going to go back to Google Earth as long as I have access to that. I'm looking at several places now that are on Shawnee National Forest, and before I ever put my boots on the ground, I am going to spend hours and hours and hours studying those photographs from Google Earth to know what I want to key in on when I do go there. One big thing, when I was younger, before I was having lots of trouble with my legs and my hips and stuff, it didn't bother me necessarily to go in.
You just set yourself up for the old man joke.
It is what it is. But it didn't bother me to go and spend all day walking a piece of property to find out what I needed to find out. But in all reality, still walking every inch of what I would think would be a piece of property, I still could not find the information that I can find in 5 minutes looking on Google Earth.
I think so. Basically, what you're saying, I think, is you would use Google Earth or maybe even DeerCast or Onyx or one of those maps to
any app
plot out and figure out where roundabout is that you think a good location would be, and then you go put boots on the ground instead of just blindly going
in and wasting. Which, I mean, anytime you're out traipsing around, you're not necessarily wasting time, but
you're not getting your goal accomplished.
I can look at an aerial view now and distinguish hardwoods, pine thickets, CRP, all of these different things. I can distinguish what I'm looking at from that satellite image, and then take that information and then go to the piece of property and actually go to those areas. I mean, I may have it written down in a notebook, or I may just have it mentally cataloged in my head of where I want to go and start my search. Now, you're not going to find the actual sign and stuff until you put boots on the ground, but you can narrow down where you need to go when you do end up on that property with boots on the ground to maximize the amount of time that you're spending there. And the last thing you want to do is to go and just traipse all over a piece of property, especially right before deer season, and put your scent everywhere out on there, when you can just look on a satellite image and go from there and be able to go and just go to places that you need to go. And then from that point, you could find your key locations to set up, and you may see something off in the distance from a stand location there that may cause you to want to tweak your ideas a little bit and move into a little different area, or it may be a matter of moving 10 or 15 yards one way or another to have yourself right on line where you need to be.
That's yeah, I like that. That's very good advice. Definitely to use those maps, utilize the maps and the technology that we have now is I think it's come a long way from just going out there and blindly trying to feel your way around and spread your scent everywhere, not to mention also bumping deer out of their spots. And
Yeah, and I had good success long before there was access to satellite images, or that I had access to satellite images. I had great success, but um,
it eliminates a lot of the time.
it eliminates a lot of the time. I've got a lot of other things that I need to be doing that are now I realize are more important than uh, deer hunting or spending time adding to that. When I can take a smaller amount of time and go get lined out on a piece of property and then utilize the extra time that I have maybe for something that is more important to me at this point in my life.
That's good. I thank you for that. Well, we shall move on. So, all right, now you shot your deer and then you've already tracked it down and you realize, well, shoot, all I have is a compact SUV, and I just so happen to have a cooler in the back of that compact SUV, which is not at all relatable and does not suggest that that was me this year. And so explain how you would quarter that deer and pack out that meat. Like, what is your process when you get out there and you find that deer and you have to do something like that? You're in a tight situation. You can't pack it out, get it into either onto a trailer or in the bed of your truck, and you have to do it right there in the field. What's the best way you think to get that all done and get that meat in that cooler?
First, you got to know your state laws. So, I'm not exactly sure what the process is in the state of Kentucky for that scenario, but in the state of Illinois, you are allowed to quarter that carcass, but you have to leave the head has got to be attached to one quarter, and the genitalia has got to be attached to one quarter. So you've got to be able to prove that it was a buck or a doe by, what's attached to one of the quarters. So that right there limits you to you cannot legally in the state of Illinois just bone out your deer and take nothing
but
but the meat.
What if your deer doesn't know what gender it wants to be? Maybe we won't get in that one.
Well, then I assume you would never take you identified only you.
Then I'm gonna make every buck be a doe. I'll just get more.
No.
That's a joke.
Yeah,
My goodness.
But you do have that concern of you cannot. I don't see a way that you can legally just bone a deer out with our game laws in Illinois without bringing out the head and the genitalia. Though now you can leave, you could bone out everything except for a quarter and leave that on it.
I guess to be more specific, once you figure that out and you know your laws and you know what the proper way is to do it, where do you suggest, where's the easiest place to start and how do you go from there?
If I was going to take a deer apart into the field, which I've never had to do before because I've always had access to a truck.
Because you're not the person in that scenario, which I described, that is not me. It's not.
Well, I mean, I have been the person in a little Dodge Neon with a 260-pound buck in the back seat before. So it just didn't bother me to put it in there. My son killed it, and we wanted his mother to see it at work, and we laid the back seats down and drug it into the trunk and then drug it into the back seat because it wouldn't fit just into the trunk and drove that thing to Paducah.
Not everyone is like you, for sure.
No, not everybody is redneck, but we could only hope that they will find Jesus and become redneck. You really simply, it's really easy. It's really easy to do. You just simply, you can, I would gut the deer first.
Start with a good knife.
You start with a good knife. If you're not using a good sharp knife, you've already defeated yourself right there. Though the shoulders come off so simply. I mean, there's no bones that attach the shoulder. It's all muscle. And so just to keep the meat clean, you might as well just, leave the hide on it, because you're going to have the hide attached to it to prove whether it was a buck or a doe. So you just grab it by the front leg, lift it up, and slice up under it, and that whole shoulder will slice right off. Take the hip, and I would go ahead and gut the deer first, because I mean, I'm going to keep the heart, I'm going to keep the liver, and
So field dress it.
I'm going to field dress it. So dress it out and take that shoulder off, and then after you field dressed it, then you can go right around. You can raise that back leg up, and you can go right around the hip joint. There's a ball joint there. You don't even have to have anything but a knife to be able to take that apart. You could pop that hip joint loose, cut that whole ham off. You could leave a leg attached to it. It doesn't make any difference. If you've got a bone saw with you where you can cut it off at the knee just to save some room. If you did cut the leg off, then you could, in theory, if you have a big enough cooler, you could put that whole quarter in there high and all.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like you're describing someone putting it into a full size freezer. I just got a little cooler.
Well,
I mean, this person in this scenario has
this person in this scenario,
a little cooler.
this person in this scenario needs to get a truck.
Not necessarily.
Or at least
This person in this scenario just got a hitch for their vehicular
got a hitch hauler. Yeah.
and now
Get a hitch hauler.
a trailer.
Yeah.
So
Get you all you got to do is be able to get the thing out. So, I would suggest, if you're not going to have access to a four-wheeler or something like that, I would suggest to buy a deer cart, and then you just roll the thing out. I've always got a deer cart with me. I mean, I have a four-wheeler now. I have for the last 3 or 4 years, but all of those years leading up to that, I did not. And I got so tired of just dragging deer out over the years. About 10 years ago, I bought a deer cart, and I will not be without a deer cart from now on. It's too much. It saves too much back-breaking work.
spoken like a true cat fisherman.
Yeah. I use my deer cart for catfishing too.
I bet you do. All right. So on a more serious note, and this is a very serious question. What do you call a hunter who can't stop hunting ducks? A quackhead.
If folks, it's like this.
Come on.
If the podcast is going to turn into dad jokes, this will be a dying podcast. I will tell you that.
That was good. All right. Okay. Getting back on. See, you didn't see that coming.
No,
That's what made it better,
not at all.
because I write the questions.
Yeah, up to this point.
Okay. So now you have a big buck coming in. Say you got this big buck coming in, and you're starting to get a little bit nervous. That buck fever setting in, get a little shaky, hard to hold your bow. What would you do in that moment to help calm your nerves?
I always call upon the Lord. I always do. And on the inside the limb of my bow, facing me, it says, "Lord, help me when I aim." And it was the name of a song that I learned when I first started getting into the ministry. Gosh, 30 years ago maybe. And I've always loved that song, and it really talks about your life being an arrow, and you being sent forward to hit that target of someone's heart. And I have really tried to just live my life with, Lord, help me when I aim, and whether it be at a deer or whether it be at anything in my life. So I feel comfortable with having that on the inside of my bow. And when I do read that, and I read that on the inside of that bow limb every time, uh, every time I look at my bow. So I naturally gravitate toward that when an animal is coming in, and it just brings a sense of calm and peace to me.
That's I love that answer. I love that you do that. It's quite inspiring. I feel like I need to find some kind of inspirational quote to throw out there on my bow.
You can use that one.
I will probably use that one. I just wasn't going to say it.
Just gonna let me see it one day.
Hey, that looks familiar.
It's also on my own.
Yeah, I like that. That's it. That's a good one. And with that said, now it's time to, drum roll, sprinkle in some archery questions because I am definitely new to archery. And you got me into that, and since you got me into it, I am loving it. I love archery. I find that I would prefer more now that I would almost prefer that more than going gun hunting. Actually, I would prefer doing that. I think there's more, not that there's anything wrong with hunting with a rifle or a shotgun, because I like doing that as well. I just think I got more passion in bow hunting now and getting out and doing that, even though I have not taken my first deer with the bow. I find joy in being able to shoot and practice, and there's joy in getting out there with your bow and setting up for the hunt. And even if I don't shoot anything, which as I said, have not yet, and that's okay, that is going to change this year.
That's right.
Even so, I love and enjoy the challenge of it. Not that gun hunting is not a challenge, but I feel like archery is definitely more of a challenge than with a compound bow. I'm sure I've not done traditional. I'm sure it's that much more of a challenge. But so far, I've enjoyed that aspect of it. And gosh, I can't even describe it.
It is. It's crazy how addictive that it is. I see. For me, and I love to bow hunt. But I love to hunt whatever season it is. If it's shotgun season, I'm just as thrilled to be there with my shotgun. If it's muzzleloader season, I'm just as thrilled to be there with my muzzleloader. If I'm carrying my 44 Magnum pistol, I'm just as thrilled to be there with my 44 Magnum pistol. I just love to deer hunt. I don't really care what I've got to hunt them with. I just love to hunt them. Now, I love watching that arrow fly through a deer, but in each different way that we have to hunt them, there's something special about each way that there's something about each type that I love.
I agree with that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's being out there in general. It doesn't matter what I'm using. It's always just a good experience. And again, even if you don't shoot anything with whatever you take, it's still just great to be in the outdoors and experience the outdoors and all that it has to offer. Just the glorious creation that God has given us to just go out and enjoy. It's hard. It's hard to describe that feeling you get being out there. It really is, at least for me.
Oh yeah.
I can't. It's just there's so much joy being out there. I can't wait to take my kids out there and get them into it if they want to get into it. If not, that's fine too. And I just can't wait. And fishing also. What a joy! And I can't wait to get back out there and do that. So, leading into the questions questions that I've also wanted to know that I feel like might help someone else getting into it. What does the term spine mean in regard to arrows, and how do you know which spine you need your arrows to have?
Spine is the stiffness of the arrow shaft, and the spine is determined by the poundage of your bow, the length of your draw, the length of your arrow. Each manufacturer for archery shafts, they've all got charts online or in their catalogs that can give you a very sound estimate on what spine of arrow shaft you need. It was it's a whole lot wider range covered in spines now shooting carbons than it was with aluminums. With aluminums, it seemed like there was just a couple different shafts that you had to, to have for certain poundages, certain draw lengths. Where it seems like now with which I just shoot gold tip. I don't mess with any other archery brand. That's the only brand I've shot since I switched from Easton aluminums to carbons, and I have always shot the 400 spine arrow, just because that's what spined right for my bow, and that I got that off of the gold tip chart for the draw length and the arrow length that I have and the weight of point that I shoot. But when you set up a bow, you need to know your poundage. You need to know what kind of point you're going to shoot as far as the weight of your point, whether it's 75, 100, 125, 150, whatever. You need all of those different things. And then you go to their chart, the manufacturer's chart of whichever brand of arrow that you want to shoot. And then they will give you a range of what spine of arrow that you need to shoot.
I apologize for my coughing fit.
It's all right.
Hang on. I took a sip of that drink and
maybe you shouldn't have been getting heavily while you was done a podcast.
It's like that. It's an energy drink. And I like, ooh. Sorry. Anyways. So that's what the term spine means, is just the stiffness of the arrow. And next question. How do you sight in your bow?
I always sight in my bow. I started at 15 yards. I have always done that from all the way back when I was first starting out 40-something years ago. I sight in my first pin an inch high at 15 yards. That's got me. Well, back then, when I first started, if you were sighting an inch high at 15 yards, then at 25 yards, you were about an inch and a half low, something like that. But now, as fast as bows are, you could be sighted in an inch high at 15 yards, and gosh, you can pretty much carry that out to almost 30 yards now, shooting off the same pin. And even with the setup that I've got now, I'm an inch high off my first pin at 15, and that first pin puts me an inch and a half low at 30 yards. So literally from the base of the tree out to 30 yards, I can just hold dead on with my first pin and just shoot and not have to worry about any kind of compensation. So you just, if you don't have access to a pro shop, then you need to have everything's got to be lined up straight. Your wrist has got to be lined up straight. There's just so many intricate things that's got to be done to make sure that you got this perfectly square, and then go from there. The sighting it in is nothing once your wrist and your knocking point is set up correct. But if you don't have your wrist and your knocking point set up correct, none of this other stuff matters, because you're not going to be a good arrow flight anyway. So my suggestion is go to a YouTube video, unless you have access to a pro shop. If you have access to a pro shop, the little bit of money that you will spend going and having your wrist and your knocking point set correctly is well worth it, because you're building your entire foundation around that. And it's like anything else. If your foundation is messed up, it doesn't matter what you do with everything else, it's going to crumble.
That sounds like a perfect segue into talking about the foundation you build with your life in Jesus Christ,
Perfect.
who should be the cornerstone. And if you try to build your foundation on anything other than that, it will crumble.
Absolutely.
But if you start, even if you're trying to rebuild your foundation, if you've gone through life and you haven't had Jesus as your foundation and you need to rebuild that, starting from where you left off is not going to help. You need to restart and build that foundation solid with Jesus Christ. And that was, wow, what a way to lead into that.
It is. It's very good.
Bravo.
Very good.
Bravo.
You know, have you ever, I know just in our talks, we went to Myrtle Beach, me and my family last year, and you told me you've been there before. All right, well, that was the first time that I had been back to the ocean since I was a kid, I guess. And I could still feel, when you're standing there in the surf and the undertow is going back out and you can feel the sand going out from around your toes and out from around your feet. You can feel it, just the foundation that you're standing on. It is sand. It is not something solid. If you were standing on rock, you wouldn't feel anything except the water rushing past you. But what you're feeling is the foundation that you're standing on deteriorating as the water gets pulled back, because as the water gets pulled back, it is tearing away what you are literally standing on. So if you have built your entire life on sand, it is going to crumble. If you do not, and it don't matter how far down your life you are, you can always, as long as you have breath in you, you can call out on the name of Jesus Christ, and you can start right at that moment building your life on the solid rock of Jesus Christ.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. But to clarify on that too, to say that to build your foundation with Christ as your cornerstone and to be your foundation does not mean you will have an easy life.
Oh, no.
At all. That is not what that means. It does not mean you will live a perfect life either. It just means that you will have Jesus there with you to help you through those. Any hard times you faced, any tragedies in your life, whatever it may be, it doesn't mean your life is going to get easier at all. And in fact, it may get, it's harder being a follower because it's not popular. And you will face opposition, and that's fine. That doesn't mean anything. And having that foundation keeps you solid, keeps you being the person you need to be. And you just keep following in that and keep that foundation and keep building upon that.
Yeah.
But it does not mean it'll get easier. And I feel like that's important to clarify, because I think a lot of churches and ministers and preachers want to preach that and fail to mention that does not mean it's going to get easier.
Well, a lot of the preachers that there are now, preach that prosperity gospel.
Yes.
If they don't pitch that prosperity gospel to you, then they can't keep getting rich. So, and that is just so evil on so many different levels.
It is going to be hard. Life is hard. It just is. But having Jesus means you do not have to do it alone. You do not have to go through your struggles alone. He will be there to guide you. He will give you a way out of any temptation you have. He promises that. And that therein is the importance of having Jesus as your foundation. It's not just a saying. It means something. And when you become a Christian and when you give your life to Christ, you find that out very quickly, and you do not have to change who you are. You can't. That's why you need him.
That's exactly.
You give your life to him and he will change you. Not perfectly. Christian is not the definition of a perfect person, period. But he will change you.
It is a change from the inside out.
100%. And I love that we get to do these podcasts now, and through this ministry, we get to experience the outdoors. We get to experience God in the outdoors, and we get to leave you all with a message. I love that. And with that, if you don't have anything else, I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you all again for listening. I really hope you're enjoying this. Even if you're not, I hope you get something out of it.
That's right. This is as much for us as it is for anyone else. This lifts us up. This is encouragement to us. So we hope it encourages you as well.
And I hope also that if you got the time and you don't mind taking the time, if you have any questions regarding hunting, faith, anything, feel free to shoot us an email at Joshua242415 ministry or outdoors ministry at gmail.com. I will put that in the description so you will have it on hand. You don't have to go by my mistake I just made in saying it. And I will post that in the description so you can see it there. Feel free to send us an email if you have any questions, whatever. If you hate us, send it. We'll take it. We'll take anything. Just send it an email.
Maybe not so much that.
Hey, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to not compromise what God tells us to say and what God tells us to do, whether anybody listens or whether anybody does not like something we've got to say. If God tells us to say it, we're going to say it, and because we're here to glorify Him, and that's basically the main thing. If we're not glorifying Jesus Christ,
absolutely,
then we are wasting our time and wasting your time.
So thanks again for being with us. We hope you continue to enjoy the shows and be with us. So with that, y'all have a fantastic rest of your week, and God bless you. The shows and be with us. So with that, y'all have a fantastic rest of your week, and God bless you.